Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. We had a lot of folks over here over the holidays. We have 7 children, 9 grandchildren, and 2 in the oven, so Christmas is pretty hectic over here, but we managed to get through it, although we're not quite done, and I'll explain in a little bit more detail what I mean by that. But let's go ahead and get started. Today is December 27th. Again, I'd like to welcome all of those of you calling in for the first time or listening for the first time. We'd certainly appreciate it if you like the things that we discuss here to click the subscribe button so that you can get our weekly calls. Today will be a short call. I mentioned last week that there would either be no call this week or I'd get on for a very short call. This will be a shorter call. I do recommend that if you want to hear a full call, which has all of the information regarding our Family Asset Protection Trust package, that you go to our call of December 13th. So there's still some good information in there, although it's not quite updated, but there's, of course, all the information about our trust package and how you can contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Basically, what we're going to discuss today very briefly is why, in my opinion, I believe that we're on the verge of the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. I expect this to happen in January. Of course, we know, those of us that have been involved for any length of time, that Iraq always manages to find some way to complicate things at the 11th hour. But based on what we're going to discuss here today, I think you might agree with me that January is looking very good. So let's just tick through some of the things that have happened recently. Of course, we had the recent meeting in Dubai. The special guest at that meeting was, of course, Iraq. Attendees at that meeting were, of course, the G7 nations, an EU delegation, the World Bank, the IMF, and the United States Treasury were all there. We know that according to everything we've learned from Sudani and the CBI, that effective on January 1st, which is about a week from now, the USD will be outlawed for use in Iraq, and the IQD will be the coin of the realm. Now, this will end the corrupt arbitrage that's been going on in country. And arbitrage is where people seek to make a profit on 2 different rates for a given currency. And, of course, what's happened in Iraq is we had the official rate and then we had the street rate, or I'd call it the black market rate. And people, unfortunately, people in government, exchange companies and banks were even taking advantage of this arbitrage. So that's finally ended. Of course, the Iranians were very good at pilfering as well, utilizing the multiple currency system. But now we're in a situation with the outlaw of the U.S. dollar that they're going to not only stop the use of the dollar, but in order to get the new currency, citizens of Iraq are going to have to turn in the provisional 3-0 currency, and the collection of, we always talk about the deletion of the zeros, but I like to talk about the collection of the zeros, because once the zeros are deleted, it doesn't matter whether you have the provisional currency or not. But the collection of the zeros is to make sure that some of the nefarious players globally aren't hoarding the provisional 3-0 currency, because when they want to exchange it for value, they have other purposes that are not actually, they're rather dark. So they want to avoid that as well. But the collection of the remaining 3-0 provisional currency will occur in Iraq just because the citizens who may still possess some of that currency, is basically worthless to them. They're going to need to exchange it for the new national currency. So Iraq basically at this point is on the cusp of Article 8 compliance with the IMF, meaning that their currency will come out of the the program rate. It will come out of the restrictions, largely because Iraq will finally be ending the multiple currency system that they've been operating under for going on 20 years. We also know that Iraq is also meeting the international financial and banking regulations and compliance. We know that they've been strengthening the import and export industry, and we know that the CBI is holding the new category small notes and coinage for release immediately, in my view, once they outlaw the dollar. It makes no sense. Once the dollar's gone, the only thing that's left is going to be the Iraqi dinar, and of course the new category small notes and coinage have not been released as yet, so all of that's going to happen very, very shortly. That being the case, there's only a couple of scenarios. One scenario might be that the dinar will go 1-to-1 with the U.S. dollar and appreciate to its Basel IV compliant rate. Another possibility is it'll just go to the Basel IV compliant rate. Not immediately, but certainly it could happen as quickly as within a matter of a week to 10 days. Let's say that the dinar hits the 4x 1-to-1 with the dollar. Well, we know that the dinar was at 322 when it went into a program rate, and we know the country is in far better shape than it was at the time. We also know we've got 20 years of inflation as well, so 322 seems to be an extremely conservative eventual rate. We know that the Kuwaiti dinar is at about 345. The U.S. dollar is 345 with the Kuwaiti dinar, and the wealth of Iraq dwarfs that of Kuwait, so 345, in my view, seems to be a conservative number. The Basel IV extrapolated rate's about 485. I don't know if we'll hit 485, but I will be surprised if we're not north of $4 very, very shortly. So that's where we are now. There's no reason to belabor the issue or prolong the call. It's our view that we could look at the reinstitution/revaluation of the Iraqi dinar in January. Of course, we'd love to see it in January because that means that taxes wouldn't be due until April 15th, which will allow us to do two things. One, compel the IRS to confirm in writing exactly what the tax implications are going to be. And second, we'll have time to allow the dinar to appreciate in value. It'll appreciate in value based, again, on its Basel IV compliant rate, but it'll also increase in value artificially due to velocity, very much the way an IPO is with a new stock. It goes up in value synthetically simply for demand. People are purchasing it. So we certainly don't want to get too risky and wait too long before we do the exchange, but based on velocity, if, for example, the Basel IV compliant rate's 485, the dinar could be worth twice that at its peak before it drops back down to that rate. The reason we know that's because that's what happened with the Kuwaiti dinar. The Kuwaiti dinar went up over $7 before it dropped back down at about 346. So if we look at that, if the Iraqi dinar is just at $4, it could easily go to $8 or $9 before it drops back down. So, we'll just have to watch that. Everyone's going to have to make their own decision about whether they want to exchange some of it or all of it initially. But if hypothetically the revaluation were to happen in December, then obviously you wouldn't have the luxury of making decisions about holding some of the currency. You're going to need to exchange it all right away because taxes would be due on January 15th. But with a revaluation in January and no taxable event no tax due until April 15th, that gives us the luxury of holding some of the currency if we feel as though it's going to continue to appreciate. But that's a decision that each individual is going to make based on their age, their objectives, their risk tolerance, and all of that. So that's where we are now. We have received a ton of calls from individuals that want to make changes to their existing trust. When I say calls, texts, emails, etc. We've received a number of individuals that want to establish their trust and they want to move quickly. we're moving as quickly as we can, but we can only handle so much. It's difficult for us when individuals contact us that we spoke with 6 months ago, a year ago, 3 years ago, and now they want to trust in 3 days. Well, we'll do the best that we can, but we can make no guarantees that we could complete the trust package prior to the revaluation, simply because of the amount of people that are interested in trusts and the relatively short period of time that we could potentially be looking at for this event to occur. So that's kind of where we are now. As I said, this is a shorter call, so we're pretty much done for today, other than to say that the individuals that have contacted us, I will be on the phone as soon as we get off this call, whether you are an existing client that wants to make changes or has questions, or whether you're someone that's submitting an application for the first time. Obviously, the applications have to take a priority. So if we have to bring in some help to get some of that done, we will, but we'll be moving as quickly as we can. I did want to kind of relate one thing about the fact that it's the Christmas holiday. We all have that experience of preparing for Christmas. Sometimes it takes a matter of weeks because you have family coming in, you send out Christmas cards, you purchase gifts, you decorate the house, you do all of that. And then it seems like it's all over so quickly within a day. But actually, if we look back at the history, Christmas in the early church was actually a 12-day celebration. They did choose a day, December 25th is Christmas, but as a matter of fact, even the song, the 12 days of Christmas, people naturally assume that these are the 12 days leading up to Christmas, but actually the 12 days of Christmas is about the gift giving in that 12-day period. Well, that 12-day period really comes from two places. One is if you go to the Luke in the Bible, and it describes Christmas and the Magi. The Magi appeared 12 days after the birth of Christ. And, of course, their gifts were gold, frankincense, and myrrh, which symbolically meant that Christ was born to die for our sins. So the gold was to purchase his tomb. The frankincense was burnt as incense. And, of course, incense, as it wafts up, is symbolic of prayer into the heavens. And, of course, myrrh to anoint his body. But it's also the 12 days going from the date of December 25th, which is Christmas, and January 6th, which is Epiphany. Epiphany being the baptism of Christ, where the Holy Trinity appeared at that time. So that's where the 12 days comes from. So as a matter of fact, in the Orthodox Christian tradition, you never take a Christmas tree down before January 6th, because that's the 12th day. That's Epiphany, and that's why it's done that way. So it's also an excuse for people like myself that have a very large family for not getting cards and gifts out by December 25th. December 25th is an arbitrary date. If you look at the scriptures, it seems to be pretty clear based on the description of what was going on at the time, the weather and all of that, that the birth of Christ probably took place in the spring. But December 25th was chosen because that was the date of the winter solstice, and which is the festival of it was a high pagan festival, and so the church did not want their followers going to any of the pagan festivals. And, of course, most of the Christians in the first century, and certainly the first generation, were pagans. And so they decided that December 25th would be a good time to celebrate the birth of Christ, in order partially to keep the pagans from, or the newly baptized Christians from celebrating pagan festivals. And, of course, during the first century, there were wars between the pagans and the Christians, and the Christians were not completely without fault. A couple of things that they did. One was the destruction of the temple in Ephesus, which actually dwarfed the Parthenon in both size and beauty because it was a pagan temple. The other unforgivable thing was burning the Library of Alexandria, which was the repository of all the ancient wisdom. And so, it was a difficult time, but we've been through all of that. We've been through the history of the church. But one thing that's remained constant is that December 25th, we all celebrate the birth of Christ. And for the next 12 days until his baptism is when we should really celebrate his family, celebrate just about everything. But wouldn't it be wonderful if during that 12-day period of time we saw the reinstitution of the dinar, which was an incredible gift to all of us that we could share with our family and friends, and all of the charitable things that so many of you discuss with me and with us about what you'd like to do. So this is where we find ourselves. We're going to watch this thing daily. All of us are. I'm sure we're all going to pray that this thing finally comes to fruition, that we can move on with our lives, do all of the things that we've wanted to do for ourselves, for our families, for friends, and, of course, as I say, charitably. For those of you that will listen to our call of December 13th, newer callers, if you decide you're interested in establishing a trust, family asset protection trust, you probably are running out of time. I would suggest you contact us as soon as possible to get our initial no-obligation package. You will at least have the information. You can go to our website, which is Trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC.com, just to kick the tires and find out who we are. However, if you are interested in getting our initial package, you can request that either by email or phone. Our email address is Trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC @gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone. We'll be happy to get our initial package out to you. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. Again, I want to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I will be on the phone as best as I can. As I said, I've got a very large family, got a lot going on. As a matter of fact, I'm home right now, and I can hear the clanking of doors, so I think people are coming and going, but that's the way it is in our home at Christmas. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Again, we wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we all look forward to the new year and what it could potentially bring for all of us. Thanks for listening. God bless and have a great week. Bye-bye now.